Greetings, dear viewers, ladies and gentlemen. This is Addis Dialogue on EBC World. Today, we'll be talking about the Nile Basin, the water monopoly that has been going on for a long period of time, and whether or not there is improvement when it comes to fair and equitable utilization of the Nile River. In search of answers to this, I'm joined by Dr. Yacob Arsano. He is Associate Professor of Political Science and International Relations at the Addis Ababa University. He's conducted extensive research when it comes to hydropolitics and political science, and his teaching career over the past 43 years has created a number of local and international scholars in the water sphere. And his advisory roles when it comes to the construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and subsequent trilateral negotiations is also immense. So he will help us break down all these issues so that we will have a better understanding of the situation with the program. I'm Shifarullah. Do stay with us. Thank you so much for making the time to talk to us on such important topic and for coming here on such a short note.
Thank you.
Whenever we talk about the Nile Basin, there are over 10 countries in the basin. However, there is this water monopoly going on. And on the other hand, there are various countries that need to have their own fair rights to using this water fairly and equitably. So what's being breached here, Professor, and what's the general guideline to using transboundary river, especially in light of international practices?
The Nile Basin comprises, as you said, more than 10 countries, to be exact 11 countries. Now, these 11 countries can be viewed in three sectors. Some of these countries are the sources of the Nile waters. Others are the conduit, the transmitting sector of the Nile waters. And the last recipient of the Nile waters is Egypt. Egypt is at the end of the Nile waters flow. At the source, we have Ethiopia, the most prominent source of the Nile waters, which contribute 86% of the total of the Nile waters. And then we have in the upstream countries like Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, Democratic Republic of Congo. Countries through which the Nile waters passes are South Sudan, Sudan, and Eritrea, and Egypt is the recipient of the end flow of the Nile waters. Nevertheless, Egypt, by a mistake of understanding of the behavior of the shared water resources with other countries, especially the source countries, most importantly Ethiopia, they conceive that they are the owners of the Nile, and they remember by heart what the Egyptian, what the British, the former colonial power of Egypt told them. That is, Egypt has historical and natural rights over Nile waters. So that is a very bad information, and not forgetting it is laziness on the part of the Egyptian member of the Nile Basin. And this negates actually the natural situation of the Nile Basin, which really tells us, and actually the fact is that the Nile Basin is shared by the countries which are the source and the middle flow countries and Egypt. So there should not be any reason for Egypt to claim that Nile belongs to Egypt as a natural and historical fact. And there is no reason other than laziness, other than remembering by rote what the colonial powers told them, that the Nile belongs to them, but not to others. And based on that kind of understanding, conception, Egypt believes still now that they are the prime owners of the Nile, and every other country in the basin should ask permission for using the Nile waters. So that is a real difficulty for communicating, for negotiating, and for cooperating between the riparian countries in the Nile Basin.
Can we say that the Nile Basin is going through dramatic change and also a new chapter when it comes to hydropolitics, you know, especially in the aftermath of the DOP, that's the Declaration of Principles, the Cooperative Framework Agreements, that's the CFA, and of course the construction of Ethiopia's national flagship, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam?
That's a very good question. It requires a lot of reviewing the progress of hydropolitics in the Nile Basin. As you said, the CFA, Cooperative Framework Agreement negotiation, comprised 9 countries. Eritrea abstained from being a member. South Sudan was not independent. So 7 upstream countries and Egypt and Sudan, the 9 countries, started negotiation. And that negotiation took some 11 years. So Egypt was all along the negotiation process. And what they would have liked to happen at the end of the negotiation was that countries would accept Egypt's historical and natural rights. But actually that backfired on Egypt. So all upstream countries concluded that they have the rightful owners and they have equal rights with every other riparian country, and that there is no reason and there is no real foundation for Egypt to claim and hold historical and natural rights, and on the basis of this to claim monopoly of the Nile waters. So the framework agreement actually concluded that all countries have equal rights to utilize and manage the water resources on equitable and reasonable basis. So this actually is a different scene than what would have happened earlier, that Egypt would not go for negotiation other than establishing their right by might.
Wow.
So that was broken through this negotiation. And actually that created a coalition of upstream countries against any overriding their rights and not accepting Egypt's claims, historical or whatever. In the case of the construction of Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, Ethiopia has always established her position and rights, and Ethiopia has always declared that the country is a sovereign country, and that sovereignty is the responsibility of the governments that come and go in Ethiopia, that Ethiopia has a full right to develop her natural resources in general, and water resources in particular, and particularly the Nile waters, to develop it in the interest of Ethiopia's public, Ethiopia's development, in the interest of Ethiopia's present and next generation. So Renaissance Dam was decided, constructed on the basis of previous Ethiopia's use right of her water resources. So that informed Egypt in a very squared way that Ethiopia has the right, and Egypt cannot reject Ethiopia's right, and there is no way that Egypt can, enforce Egypt's claim over Ethiopia by any means, although they several times intimated that they go for war if Ethiopia utilizes water resources.
Yeah.
And that would not happen, and that is not a possibility, and that is not the way countries behave to utilize their shared water resources. So after the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam construction started, again, declaration of principles, negotiation immense, it emerged, and it took maybe a short period of half a year or something, and then that declaration established that Ethiopia has the right to fill the dam while construction progresses. So that is a natural relationship between the construction of the dam and filling of the dam, you see. So that is why Ethiopia has been filling the dam while the construction is progressing. During the past several years, 12 years, the construction has been taking on, and the filling of the dam has been taking on during the past 4 years. So the declaration does not prohibit Ethiopia not to fill the dam, because that's Ethiopia's right. While filling the dam, and with the purpose of the construction of the dam, Ethiopia is fully aware that her right is to develop the natural resources within Ethiopia, including water, including Nile water, Abai, and at the same time, Ethiopia does not have any intention to significantly harm Egypt, either through the quality or the quantity of water resources.
Professor, as you have said, Ethiopia has been constructing the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam with the sole objective of lifting millions of Ethiopians from darkness, from abject poverty, if you will. And that's exactly what has been going on. Talking about the construction of the GERD, let's also talk about the construction of the GERD vis-a-vis its impacts on the hydropolitics in the Nile Basin. Has the construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam redefined the hydropolitics in the Nile Basin by, reshaping the water hegemony, the hydro hegemony that has been going on for so many years, and also galvanizing other nations in the basin countries into action to properly make the best out of their rights to using their natural resources? What are some of your observations in this regard?
That's a brilliant question. I see with the commencement of the construction of the Renaissance Dam, Ethiopia has really went out very clearly to explain that Ethiopia has the sole authority over the natural resources of Ethiopia. And in doing so, Ethiopia started the construction of the dam on a solid study, on a solid design, which informs the entire process to construct the dam step by step and for the sole purpose of developing the Ethiopian economy, Ethiopian hydropower, and to help Ethiopia, to initiate a lot of economic development in urban and rural areas, helped by the hydroelectric power, where Ethiopia is very short in having this kind of power previously. Now, since Ethiopia has done this on a solid ground with a firm, preparation, and with no intention to harm significantly any other country, Sudan or Egypt, other upstream countries hailed Ethiopia, praised Ethiopia, and admired Ethiopia. All of them have been behind Ethiopia's construction of the Renaissance Dam. So that means other upstream countries have been galvanized and have been appreciative of what Ethiopia has done, and they are very much satisfied by the progress and success of the construction and the filling of the dam. And actually, not only in Ethiopia, the rest of Africa spoken by saying this is Africa's prime project, and this is Africa's dam, and this is an example for the rest of African countries to come up with this kind of huge and successful project, which they would like, to take a lesson out of it. So therefore, this dam really defined the level where Nile Basin countries can go with their water resources, with their negotiating capacity, with their, underlining their rights.